wonderful season of the Fantasy Football Strategy Guide. We're actually entering into our third season here for what we're doing here with the Nightly News Media Club as part of our Fantasy Football look at 2019. We're being joined here by three familiar voices from last year. We want to start off with our new graduate, Dylan Kleintop. Dylan, thank you so much for being here after you've actually graduated from the institution.
Yeah, I love coming out to this. Thank you for having me.
Certainly, and we would love to have you back anytime that we can. We are going to do this monthly, so we will be back in September, so hopefully we can have you back for that. Also being joined by Nightly News Media Club President Brian Christiana. Brian, you did finish second in the league last year, but just second is only the first loser, as they say.
Yeah, it's my second straight season of finishing second, so yeah. Let's hope that this season goes much better.
And, of course, also being joined by Nightly News Secretary Parker Rose. Parker, always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Oh, it's great to be back on the Fantasy Football Podcast.
All right, well, we have a lot going on today. We are going to, in the first half of the podcast, we're going to start off with our top 25 overall. So I ask everybody here to come up with their top 25, and then we're going to take a look at the individual positions of quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end on the first half. On the second half of the show, we're going to take a look at some rookies. We're going to talk about sleepers and busts. We're going to talk about top 5 players on new teams, and we end with our Super Bowl predictions. So it should be a fun show today. We're going to be looking forward to getting you ready for your fantasy football drafts that should be coming up over the next couple of weeks. So we're going to be throwing a lot of information out there at you, so hopefully you are ready to go. And all right, we're going to start off with our top 25 overall. So we're going to kind of look at this as we did previously in sort of 3 different tiers. So we'll look at 1 through 10, 11 through 20, and then we'll kind of take a look at either 20 through 25, or maybe even some people that did not appear in our top 25 and why they didn't appear. So we're going to start off with Dylan. Dylan, let's take a look at your top 10. If you want to go ahead and list your top 10 in order from 1 to 10.
All right, so I started off with Saquon Barkley at 1, and then I have Christian McCaffrey at 2. At 3, I have Alvin Kamara. 4, I have Le'Veon Bell. 5, I have DeAndre Hopkins, and in a close 6, I have Devontae Adams right behind him. In 7, I have Michael Thomas. 8, Julio Jones. 9, I have Todd Gurley, which is a pretty far drop from last year. And at 10, I have Melvin Gordon.
Though he's still when we're talking about Todd Gurley, he's still a top 10 player. So, I mean, even though he's fallen maybe from that number 1, I think that has a lot to do with his uncertainty. But at the same time, all reports that I've heard about Gurley have been positive from the Rams. I mean, is he going to get 20 carries a game? Probably not. But I still think that with it being Gurley, he's going to get goal line looks. I think that people might be kind of overrating this whole injury issue, although we still never gotten any clarification on what happened to him in the championship game and in the Super Bowl. So it's still kind of mysterious that more hasn't come out about this, and hopefully Todd Gurley's ready to go for this year. I noticed you have Barkley at 1. That seems to be a fairly consensus opinion, but what was your thought process here, taking him over Zeke Elliott, Alvin Kamara, and Christian McCaffrey, among others?
Well, for one, we don't even know when or if Zeke Elliott's going to even play this year. He has that whole contract dispute and whatnot. But Barkley, I mean, the Giants' offense, we all know hasn't been the best over the past few years, but Barkley brings another dynamic to the offense. With Eli Manning, he's getting up there in age. He's not able to throw 300, 400 yards a game, so they need that running back that's able to carry the offense workload. And Barkley is that. He's a 3-down running back, 4-down if you need him. Like, he's a monster of a man. He's going to get you the yards. He's going to get you the touchdowns. So that's why I think Barkley is going to go number 1 in almost every single league.
Couple of issues that I have with Barkley, keeping in mind I have him at 2. The only issues and the only reservations that I have about Barkley is I almost never in the first round take someone that I feel is on a poor offense. I think Barkley is on a poor offense. I don't think there's any question about that. I also worry about workload here. Everybody seems to say, well, Barkley's going to get all of these touches, and that's probably true. He's probably going to have the most touches in the NFL. When you have that many touches and you're that exposed, you're a little bit more likely to be injured. Now, he didn't have any injury issues last year, but even at Penn State, he had some injury issues. And to roll the dice on a second-year player on a poor offense that at some point could have a rookie quarterback. I mean, how many 8-man boxes is he going to go up against?
A lot.
You know, and that's my biggest concern. Also, their offensive line is terrible and lost, not that Eric Flowers was anything all that special, but they've lost him. They didn't really address it all that much in the offseason. I think there's some question marks here on Barkley. Again, if I'm in the 2 pick and he falls to me at 2, I'll take him, but otherwise I don't know if I have him a whole lot.
Yeah, well, I personally think the Giants are just taking the long route of just rebuilding. They don't really have they don't have an offense. They don't really have a defense anymore. Not like they ever really had a defense, but with drafting Drew Jones or Daniel Jones last year and having Barkley, they're going to look for younger receivers, and eventually I think Barkley's going to be, if he's not a superstar already, he's going to be a superstar.
He's definitely a superstar. Yeah. I mean, he's a consensus, let's be polite and say top 3 overall fantasy player. I don't doubt that he's going to have a big season. I've always been the type of person who, my first round pick, I almost always take somebody that's on a high-powered offense because the likelihood of scoring is more. All right, Brian, we're going to go to you. Let's hear your top 10.
My number 1 was Alvin Kamara from the Saints. 2, I had Christian McCaffrey. 3, I went with a little... I put this guy up. I put Devontae at number 3 for Green Bay. Then Barkley went at number 4. 5, I went Zeke. Gotta stay loyal. 6, Todd Gurley. 7, David Johnson. 8, Le'Veon Bell. 9, I went with a tight end. I went with Travis Kelce. And then I went 10. Believe it or not, I went with a quarterback. I went with against what I've always said, I put Mahomes in there.
And I'm glad you brought that up. We will come back to Mahomes. I think that we should talk about that in maybe a little bit more when we get to quarterbacks. But the thing about Mahomes is he's so good. He's so much better. My only concern is you almost never take a quarterback in the first 2 rounds.
Never.
And the season he had last year was just unreal.
It was groundbreaking.
Can he duplicate that? I mean, it's certainly to his benefit that Tyreek Hill is not going to be disciplined at this time. He still may be if more information comes out, but he is going to be available. The biggest thing here, and the reason that I actually would not take him in the first round, I actually have Mahomes at 14, is no Kareem Hunt. Damian Williams did have a solid end to the season last year. However, he's already had some injury issues. He's never been a feature back.
He's not a Kareem Hunt, let's be completely honest.
I don't know that too many people are
yeah.
at this point. So I do think it's interesting that we can talk about Mahomes a little bit more, but I'm actually kind of intrigued there that you have him in the top 10. Parker, let's go to you for your top 10.
All right, so top number 1, I got Barkley as well. Patrick Mahomes 2, Breeze 3, Todd Gurley 4, DeAndre Hopkins 5, Alvin Kamara 6, Michael Thomas 7, Julio Jones 8, Adam Thielen at 9, and Christian McCaffrey to round out the top 10.
You're very generous, Parker.
One person I definitely want to take a look at is Breeze there. Why are you so high on Breeze? The rest of your top 10 looked pretty good. Breeze actually an ADP on ESPN. So when we do refer to rankings, I am going off ESPN.com. His ranking in terms of overall ADP is at 59. Why are you so high on Breeze this year?
I'm high on Breeze because look at the offensive depth around him. He has Michael Thomas in the wide receiver core. He has Alvin Kamara in the backfield.
He also has Jared Cook at tight end now.
Exactly. So,
I mean,
if I'm drafting a quarterback with those offensive threats, Drew Brees is my quarterback.
Let me just give you some insight. Don't pull an Ian Kemmer and draft a quarterback in the first round.
Or Malcolm Fox.
Yeah, Malcolm Fox was the big one on that.
But and I think that's interesting. I also kind of think that the problem with quarterback and putting a quarterback up that high is that there's so many. I mean, you're looking at people like, here, I'm just going to read. This is the back end, so I'm going to start at 13 in terms of rankings. This would be after your top 12 quarterbacks are off the board. Dak Prescott, Ben Roethlisberger, Jared Goff, Lamar Jackson, Mitch Trubisky, Phillip Rivers at 18.
That's disrespectful.
Cousins at 20. Garoppolo at 21. I would take... I'm waiting on quarterback. I really am. Unless I get somebody like an Andrew Luck that falls because of these injury questions, I'd stay away from Wentz. Brady, number 10, he actually in some of the rankings I've seen is actually down in the 20s. No Gronk. I'm staying as far away from Brady as possible, but that's interesting. We might have to circle that one there and come back to that later in the season, Parker, and see how Breeze is doing. But certainly, if you're going to roll the dice on a quarterback, Breeze is the one.
Pick.
And he was in the running for the MVP last year, so I mean.
And he never seems to age. No. He never gets hurt. It's really quite astounding what Breeze has managed to do in his career. Very, very surprised of how well he's done. So
Phillip Rivers, that kind of
at 18.
Yeah, and then another one. I mean, I'm a fan of him. A lot of people aren't really big on. I'm a big Matt Stafford fan too.
Again, Stafford's at 25 in ADP. You have Foles at 26, who could step it up.
Darnold.
I mean, you're not taking any of these guys down here. But even if you're looking at your top 24, you still have Stafford and Foles outside of that. So that's who you're talking about getting as your backup quarterback.
We have no clue how Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be.
I think, honestly, I bet I end up with him on some teams.
I would not mind having Jimmy Garoppolo. I'd feel safe with him.
He might be a backup quarterback for me on the bench.
I think I'm just going to stay away from quarterback till like the 10th round and just pick up one of these guys and be my starter, and maybe just roll the dice with two of these guys, like a Garoppolo and a Cousins, and try to play the matchup game every week.
Josh Allen.
He's got some upside, but again, he's just, in my mind, at quarterback, I want a high-scoring offense if that's possible, which I really think somebody like a Phillip Rivers will have a high-scoring offense. I think San Francisco's going to have a heck of a team. They picked up Tevin Coleman. They still have McKinnon. They've got a really good
it's a solid
offense.
Team.
Yeah.
George Kittle.
Yes, of course, Kittle, one of my favorites.
We'll talk about him, I'm sure.
My top 10. This is something I'm really gonna go out on a limb here. I'm taking Zeke number 1. I have a full feeling that he will be back in camp. Jerry Jones wants to get the deal done, and while Zeke has said, I'm not playing without a new contract, I have a feeling he's going to get a new contract.
ESPN said that they believe Zeke will cave before the Cowboys will cave.
I don't think this is a Melvin Gordon situation. I think these two situations are very, very different in that the Cowboys know what they have.
Zeke wants to be there too.
They're going to pay him. He's their best player. They think they can win now. They need him. And if they have to pay him with Todd Gurley money, well, pay him the Todd Gurley money. I mean,
we really need to pay. As a fan, I'm very upset that he's holding out right now, but I understand why.
Again, I wouldn't be overly concerned because we've only just gotten through the first preseason game. Be concerned if week 1 he's not in the locker room, personally. So I have Zeke number 1. If I have the number 1 pick today, I'm taking him, even though last year I got stuck with Le'Veon Bell in a league that I wasn't too happy about. But I just don't see this happening. I think that they're on the same page and they just got to work out some numbers.
And in a way, this is hurting Zeke. He has another year because he held out. Another year just got added to his contract. They talked about how next year is when he would be up for a new contract anyway. So he's stuck in Dallas next year anyway.
Yeah, so I'm still shocked that Bell sat out the entire season. I mean, but that's a whole separate conversation we'll get to. Number 2, I have Saquon Barkley. 3, Alvin Kamara. My concern with Kamara, and I've been always very high on Kamara, problem is they don't want to give him the full complement. Obviously, they lost Mark Ingram, who went to the Ravens. Kamara, definitely dynamic out of the backfield. He'll definitely do well between the tackles. But just looking ahead, one of the people that I definitely wanted to talk about, Latavius Murray, when we get to some of the people on new teams. I think he has a bigger role than people give credit to. And remember, between Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, they sustained 2 running backs as starting running backs last year. So Christian McCaffrey at 4, though I would be very hesitant to pick him. I'm still very concerned about injury problems, but he's stayed healthy thus far. My number 1 wide receiver off the board, sort of to Parker's point, Michael Thomas, just got this huge new contract. Really the best, in my personal opinion, is the best receiver in the league. And far as skill-wise, he's got a Hall of Fame quarterback. If I'm going in on a wide receiver in the first round, it's going to be Michael Thomas. Number 6, Le'Veon Bell. I think he's actually being undervalued this year. He, again, number 1 player in fantasy multiple years in a row. Yes, he's definitely downgraded for the team. But, Sam Darnold seems to be a pretty smart guy. If you have Le'Veon Bell in the backfield, give him the ball, throw him the ball. I do have Gurley at 7, Hopkins at 8. Someone I didn't hear from any of you guys, Dalvin Cook. I'm a big Dalvin Cook fan this year. Would I spend that 9 pick on him? Yes, I believe I would. If I'm at the back end of the first round and I'm looking for a running back, I would take him there because really, here's who you have otherwise. David Johnson, Damian Williams, James Conner. Of all of those people, I'm going to go with Dalvin Cook. And number 10, again, no one mentioned Juju Smith-Schuster. I think this is the guy I think is going to make a huge impact because of no Antonio Brown. So he was a wide receiver 1 last year with Antonio Brown. They didn't really replace Antonio Brown with anybody. I know they got some rookies in there, but I don't know. I think Schuster is the way to go. All right, gentlemen, let's take a look at the second half of our top 20. And we'll start with Brian. Brian, let's talk 11 to 20.
Yes, sir. I was very high on Mike Evans this year, so I put him in there. Yep. Nick Chubb from the Cleveland Browns, Odell Beckham, Zach Ertz,
Good pick.
Adam Thielen, T.Y. Hilton, Tyreek Hill, DeAndre Hopkins, Michael Thomas, and no one said Keenan Allen.
One comment I wanted to make on Chubb. My biggest concern, and in fact, I don't even have Chubb in my top 25. I really don't know how it's going to break out with Kareem Hunt. Now, here's one way to look at it, though. If Hunt's suspended for the first 8 games, and I don't know off the top of my head, but
when their bye week is.
Yes, when their bye week is. It could be till week 10 until Kareem Hunt even played. So by that time, there's only 3 games left in the fantasy football regular season. So, on one hand, if you got Nick Chubb, he's basically the only person there. Duke Johnson traded recently to the Texans. I'm concerned
with
that
who his backup will be.
That's something that's going to be important to shake out in the preseason. Here's my concern, Brian. While Chubb could be huge the first portion of the season, what if he has a reduced role in your fantasy playoffs when Kareem Hunt comes back?
That's true. I mean, honestly, we have no clue how the impact of Kareem Hunt is going to have on the Cleveland offense.
I would say if you are taking Chubb to also get Hunt.
Yeah,
I don't know.
As a handcuff.
I don't know how soon thereafter, but I would imagine Hunt's going to end up going pretty high, even though he's suspended.
My honest opinion on that, I think if Nick Chubb's having a good year, I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns do what the Saints did, split time between the two of them, because they're both talented running backs. Nick Chubb, when they played the Browns played the Steelers, when they give the ball to Nick Chubb, I'm always thinking, oh boy, here we go.
Well, okay, so Dylan, let's go to you for 11 to 20.
So at 11, I have Travis Kelce. 12, I have Tyreek Hill. 13, I have OBJ. 14, I have Juju. 15, I have James Conner. 16, I have Keenan Allen. 17, I haven't heard this name yet, and it's probably because he's a little injured, Amari Cooper. 18, I have Zach Ertz. And 20, I have David Johnson.
All right. So definitely a few things in there. You're definitely a little higher on Dalvin Cook than it seems everybody else. What is it that you like about Cook? I mean, I know I had him in the top 10, but he's still solid in the top 20.
Well, I've liked Cook since he played for Florida State, and I'm a big Florida State fan. I actually got to see him play in college, and he's a talented running back. I just don't think he's had quite the opportunity that he's deserved in the pros. I mean, he's been injured a lot, and when he came back from injury, he was splitting time kind of with Latavius Murray,
who's no longer there.
Yeah, so Dalvin's going to get majority of the touches, and I think if he stays healthy, he will definitely be one of probably a top 10 running back, if not a top 20 player. So.
I'm definitely in on Cook, and again, not only some of the reasons I discussed already, but also the fact that Murray is gone. Murray did split a lot of time, got a lot of goal line work. I think Cook's going to get all of that. You know, obviously a lot of this is health, and we're really just kind of speculating on health. Cook has had some injuries. He did have an ACL 2 years ago. Last year he was kind of in and out, but definitely looked good recovering from the ACL surgery. So I think that's a step in the right direction for him. All right, Parker, 11 through 20.
I got Luck at 11, George Kittle at 12, Zach Ertz at 13, Travis Kelce at 14, Melvin Gordon at 15, Juju Smith-Schuster at 16. One I did not hear at 17, David Njoku, tight end. Zeke at 18, another name I didn't hear, Joe Mixon. And 20, I have Brady.
Zeke at 18, wow.
Well, again, maybe the whole Le'Veon Bell thing from last year is really scaring some people off. And in fact, in ADP right now, Zeke is down at 4. and he's already dropped 3 spots in the last 7 days from when we recorded this. So that, I don't think anybody questions Zeke's ability. It's,
May I ask,
are you going to be on the field?
May I ask if your rankings go like how you think like the tight ends are ranked? So you think that Kittle is the number 1 tight end in the league right now?
Between him and Ertz,
Well,
Kittle has him beat by a little
What
bit.
about Travis Kelce?
Yeah, what about Travis?
I still think George Kittle's better.
What's your opinion on you putting a bunch of quarterbacks in the top 20? Like, what's your take on that?
Honestly, with quarterbacks, a lot of the ones in my top 20, they're talented. Like Andrew Luck, for a Colts team that doesn't have as much of a wide receiver core, he pretty much carries that team. Breeze, he's surrounded and he knows what he's doing. I put Brady in there because it's Tom Brady. So
Well, that was one problem I had last year is I put Tom Brady in my top 25 based on who I thought was the best players in the league. When we look at fantasy-wise, Tom Brady's not one of the best players for fantasy.
that's why I dropped him down to like
Yeah.
20.
Miller, what do you think about the whole Njoku thing? Is that
Well, the thing about, and we can get into this a little bit more when we get to tight ends, but the thing about tight ends is, to me, there are just the Kelsey, Ertz, Kittle. You can argue back and forth about who you would take in what order, but I think it's obvious that it's the top 3. And if you miss out on one of those top 3, I think Njoku would be a good upside play.
I have 2 guys who I would even take over him.
I do as well. Actually, I have Njoku at 7 in my tight end rankings. I'm big on Evan Ingram.
I didn't
They
have-
literally have no one else to catch the ball.
I was thinking Jared Cook.
I don't even have Cook in my top 10.
I was thinking Eric
Wow.
Ebron too.
Jared Cook, Eric Ebron. I would even include, I mean, it's a little biased, but I would include Witten on there.
And there's another one. Who knows how that's going to work out? He, even in his last couple of years, he was never real big for fantasy, though. He'd catch
I mean, Witten
50,
gets
60
you,
balls.
8-9 points a week.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, out of a tight end, you're not going to get Travis Kelce
Right.
numbers every week.
Right. All right. For me, 11, Damian Williams. 12, David Johnson. 13, Julio Jones. 14, Patrick Mahomes. 15, James Conner. 16, Antonio Brown. 17, Devontae Adams. 18, Kerryon Johnson was the first time I've heard that one.
Kerryon Johnson's
19, Kelsey, and 20, Keenan Allen. So, again,
So you're very high on Damian Williams, though.
I'm very high on Damian Williams, but I'm interested and intrigued on his foot injury right now, so we're still going to be looking at that. The one that I'm down on Devontae Adams. And it's really not a whole lot of a knock against him, but they have so many young receivers. I anticipate some major step up from some of these other guys. And of course, Devontae Adams, I have him right beneath Antonio Brown, so it's not that much of a slight. I look at him as more of a second-round pick than I do a first-round pick.
And you know what? It's really sad to say this, but they also had. I mean, it's not sad that they have him, but it's sad that people don't have as much respect as they used to have for Jimmy Graham. I mean, the Green Bay Packers still have him, and people don't even consider him in the top half of tight ends in the league.
No, definitely
Falling
not.
down.
I did want to talk about Kerryon Johnson here. This was someone that I haven't heard anyone say in their top 20. I think this guy, and I'm kind of looking forward to my sleeper list, I think this guy is massively underrated.
He's
and
an Auburn product, man. What do you expect?
in fact, he's actually going at 33 on the ADP, though it looks like he's actually moved up considerably, 8 spots over the past week, so maybe some other people are starting to see what I'm seeing. But again, high-powered offense, really not a lot of competition, no more Theo Riddick. I'm honestly not even sure who's backing him up at this point. I think that Kerryon Johnson could literally easily be a top 5 player this year
by
should he
far.
stay healthy. Although, of course, you could say that about a lot
And
of
if
people.
I'm correct, their bye week is early on in the season. I think it's like week 5 or something. Same with Kenyon Drake. So, I mean, 2 guys you could take a look at.
All right, so we don't necessarily have to go through our last 5, but maybe take a couple of guys here who either you didn't rank in your top 25 or people that just caught in that top 25. So let's maybe look at 1 or 2 players each. So we'll start with you, Brian.
I put Melvin Gordon in there. I mean, we don't know what the situation is going to be, but
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
The big difference in my estimation, between Melvin Gordon and Zeke, if Melvin Gordon was in camp, I'd probably make him a top 15 player. I don't even have him in my top 25 for several reasons. Actually, I lied. I have him at 22. The reason is he's one I'm worried about. I'm not worried about Zeke. I'm worried about Melvin Gordon. They seem to be very far apart. Frankly, from all reports, the Chargers are not really even
concerned.
No, They have Austin Eckler, who I think could be a big player.
Huge.
And if you draft Melvin Gordon and you don't draft Eckler, you need to go back to fantasy football school. But there is no movement. There has been no clarification. And frankly, to me, I'm probably not taking Melvin Gordon unless it'd be like in the 5th round. Now, when I rank him at 22, I'm ranking him based on if he were to be back. I'm still concerned. He had some injuries at the end of last year. I'm staying away as much as possible from Melvin Gordon. All right, let's talk about a couple players in your top 21 through 25, or maybe someone who didn't make the list, Dylan.
So there's one player I want to talk about, and I want everyone's opinion on this. Antonio Brown and the helmet situation. Have you guys been following what's going on with his helmet?
Yeah.
What's your opinion? Like,
I think it's funny. I honestly think it's funny because he cried about not getting the ball in Pittsburgh, and he got his wish to leave Pittsburgh. And now he goes to Oakland. He's given the same trouble there.
he's not giving trouble to Oakland though. He's giving trouble to the NFL.
Hey, I agree with Antonio Brown. If it's gonna cost him, like he said, he has a problem seeing the ball, that's costing him money. Because, I mean, if he can't catch the ball, guess what? His numbers are down, then he loses out on money.
That's if he even gets the ball.
It's the rules, though.
He'll get the ball. He's a number one receiver.
He's going to be double covered. That's why he didn't get in Pittsburgh. And you don't have a good quarterback throwing to him.
But we also have Tyrell Williams and J.J. Nelson behind him, too. So
I have a hot take on this, guys. I really think both the frostbite of the feet, which is not a work. Obviously, it actually happened. But this whole helmet thing, I think this is all for Hard Knocks, man. I really do. I think this is all just
HBO.
Nothing. I think that this is, number one, you know what you're getting with Antonio Brown. He's never been, I mean, he basically quit on his team last year. Mm-hmm. So this is who you get. This is who he is. I think he's going to be there, ready to go week one. I got to tell you, his feet are nasty. I feel bad for the guy. It has to be painful. I mean, he's standing on his feet and has to run for a living, so that can't be good. But I think this whole helmet thing, I was actually doing some research about this. There are multiple helmets that people can wear. It's not just like, here's one helmet, you have to wear this one helmet. There's like dozens of different types of model numbers of helmets you can wear. So it's not like he didn't like the one. He's just stuck in the past. And I appreciate the NFL here, and I'm shocked that he filed a grievance. I'm just very, very surprised at the way he handled this. All right, gentlemen, we're going to move on. Let's just go as sort of rapid fire here, because we already talked about a lot of these people. I'm just going to pull out a particular player in our quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end rankings, and then we'll chat about them for a minute or two. The person I want to talk about in quarterback is Carson Wentz. Where do you have him, or do you have him in your top 10, Brian?
Number 9.
I don't even have him in my top 10.
I don't have him in mine either. He's injury prone.
I have him at 5. And here's why. So I guess we're saying that I'm high on Carson Wentz here. And in fact, he is going number 9 in ESPN ADP. There's a couple of reasons. Number one, Baker Mayfield is going 4 right now in ADP. I don't even have him in my top 10. I want nothing, honestly. Outside of maybe Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, I don't want anyone on the Browns.
You don't want Odell. Not even Jarvis.
Maybe Landry.
Joku.
Landry's going in like the 30s in wide receiver. So, yeah,
Jarvis is ranked like 68 right now.
Yeah, he's. See, I like him in PPR. I've been a Jarvis Landry fan ever since he's with the Dolphins, and I think he's great in PPR. I like Wentz here for a variety of reasons. I think they've upgraded at offense.
By far. They have 3 really good wide receivers.
And getting Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders as well. That was the biggest issue last year for the Eagles, was the running game. It was all piecemeal. People were getting hurt in and out. I mean, I think they started like 6 or 7 different running backs last year. So they're going to have a more solid running game. You know, again, this is all about injury, but the same could be said for other people. Cam Newton's coming off an injury. Ben Roethlisberger misses 1-2 games a season because he's nicked up. Even, Deshaun Watson has had injury issues towards ACL a couple seasons ago. So to say that Wentz is injury prone, I don't know that that's necessarily fair. The Eagles also have one of the best offensive lines in football. So I'm maybe a little higher on Wentz. he would probably be a guy that I would pick before the 10th round or whatever I had mentioned earlier. One other person is Andrew Luck, and here's a whole nother situation that really he's down at 4 right now because I think he's going to make it back, and I think they're just being cautious with him. Still, this calf injury
it's very suspicious,
and they also he's been dealing with this since April. So I mean, we're talking months here, and it was said that this was something that similar to what Kevin Durant went through. And look what happened when Durant came back and tried to test that calf.
Tore his Achilles.
Yeah, so this is a situation where he had such a great season last year. If you roll the dice on Luck, especially if you're drafting soon, you have to get one of the top backups just in case, because that could literally ruin your whole season if you wait on quarterback to back up Andrew Luck.
What's your opinion on Baker?
I think it's just all hype. Look, he played well last year. Let's not argue about that. He definitely played well. But it's still the Browns. I mean, I know the Browns are this big hype team, and everybody loves the Browns. I need to see it.
I give them a couple seasons because they have all young talent. They're going to be contending in the next couple seasons.
That defense is going to hold that team together, I think, with Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward.
Oh, I agree.
And they just got Olivier Vernon, too.
I still don't think they're going to take the North, though.
In terms of ADP, here's who you have beneath Baker Mayfield. Matt Ryan, Andrew Luck, Drew Brees, Cam Newton, Carson Wentz, Tom Brady. This is based on ESPN ADP. I would have all of those quarterbacks, even Russell Wilson, probably even Roethlisberger, ahead of Mayfield. I will not have him on one team this year.
Would
You skipped my guy, didn't you, on purpose?
No, I'm saying under Baker Mayfield and ADP, Mahomes, Watson, and Rodgers are 1, 2, 3.
I know you went from what did you say, Brady?
Brady.
Yeah, and then you jumped all the way to Rodgers.
I was saying who I would take over Mayfield. I would not take Dak Prescott over. I would take Baker before I would take Dak. Sorry. All right, let's look at running back. I think we covered the running back quite well, but I do want to start talking about a couple of people individually. So we talked about Elliott, Barkley, Kamara, and Cook. Also a little bit about Gurley. What about Bell in a PPR league? How can he not be top 10? If he has a full season, how is he not going to be a top 10 overall player?
I had him at number 8 in my top 25. I think he's going to be worth it.
Who else do they have?
I mean,
they don't have anyone.
Robbie Anderson.
That's about it.
Yeah. I think he's going to really step up this season and prove to many people around the league that he still has it and he's worth the money.
To me, he's going to have 100 catches this year. I mean, they literally don't have anybody else. Sam Darnold checked down a lot. He's a great receiver.
Did you hear he wants over 500 carries this year?
I hope so, because I'm going to have him.
One of your best running backs coming out of the backfield, with being the wide receiver, doing the wide receiver routes and all, because he was used a lot in that with Pittsburgh. So
speaking of that, let's talk about that for a second. What about James Conner? Refresh our memory, guys. Where did you have Conner coming in your running back rankings?
I have Conner on my running back rankings. I have Conner at 9.
That's where I have Conner at 9 as well.
I have him at 10.
I don't have Conner in my running back rankings, but he was in my top 25
Yeah,
players.
you had him at 15 overall, so you're still first or second round on this guy. Do you think we're a little overzealous here? Because really, he didn't even play the whole season.
It seemed like Conner did very well when Bell was suspended, because it was like an audition for him. And then once Bell decided he was done, it seemed like Conner slowed down. There was a couple weeks where he had 5-6 fantasy points, and then he would get 20 the next week. He was very inconsistent at the end.
And Bell actually...
Because who was the running back that they had also? Was it Washington or something?
Are you talking about Samuels?
Yeah. Oh, Samuels.
Yeah,
I'm
Washington's
sorry.
a wide receiver.
Yeah. Samuels at the end, he really picked up the load.
Because when James Conner got his injury, when he came back, he just couldn't do anything.
So he is going right now at ADP number 9 for running backs. Last season, he had 973 yards, 12 touchdowns, but also an underrated 55 catches for 497. Again, he missed 3 games, so I mean, if you want to, give him maybe 1,250 yards, 15 touchdowns, and maybe 70 catches, that's pretty impressive. I might reconsider Conner here, but again, he's only done it one time. He did not make it through an entire season. He did make it back for Week 17, which I got to give him credit. But
that was the make or break week for Pittsburgh, wasn't it?
Yeah, when Antonio Brown quit on his team.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm interested to see what happens with Connor here. That's a risky pick, even in the first or second round, to take him. But I guess he's got just as much upside as anybody else.
I put your guy in my top 10 running backs, carry on.
I really like Johnson. I'm very surprised that he's not going a little higher on a lot of these lists. I actually have him coming in at 11 in my top 10. But honestly, I would probably take him over Damian Williams, David Johnson, James Conner. I'm really high on Kerryon Johnson.
Parker, did you say you put carry on at 4?
With my running backs, yeah, because I'll be honest, when I was doing homework looking for running backs, I'm thinking tough because Le'Veon Bell being out for a season, I don't know how he's going to be. Zeke sitting out possibly. Injuries with Gurley and all of them, we don't know. So looking at
You're very high on carry on. I'm very high on Chris Carson as well for Seattle.
And I like Carson last year. My only problem with Carson is he really does not catch many balls out of the backfield, and they still have former first-round pick Rashad Penny. Carson did get the workload, but unfortunately on like 3 separate occasions last year when he did get a lot of carries, he missed the next week. Yeah. So if they look back, I really think we're going to see a true 50-50 split between Carson and Penny.
Seattle is a weird team. I know everyone, many people love Seattle because Russell Wilson.
It's that West Coast offense.
But that offense is just strange because every year it seems like there's a different running back coming out of the backfield. You never know who they're going to have at receiver. This year they have DK Metcalf. Lockett's still there. But otherwise,
Carson at 23. Checking in. People in front of him like Josh Jacobs, Marlon Mack, Aaron Jones, even Sony Michel and Mark Ingram in Baltimore. Although Mark Ingram's someone we haven't talked about. These guys could run the ball more than any team in NFL history this season. I think Ingram might be underrated, and I'm actually might mention him again for my sleepers, even though I didn't have him on my initial list. I think he's going way too low.
I am not feeling that one. I'm going to be honest with you, Miller. Because Mark Ingram, I always saw him as like a guy who could do a co-backfield, like how you said with Seattle, like a 50-50 split, just like how New Orleans was. Him as a full-time number one, I don't know. I just don't see it.
Well, it should be interesting to see how that breaks out. I just think he's underrated for the simple fact of how much they are going to run the ball. Plus they still have some people there from last year, but I don't know.
When you have an offense with Willie Snead as your number one receiver.
Their receiving is pathetic.
They're going to be running a lot of the read options because Lamar Jackson and Trace McSorley are both.
Trace McSorley is not even going to play a down.
I honestly, I won't be
Jackson
surprised.
Gets hurt, why not?
I honestly won't be surprised if they do what the Ravens, what Penn State does with Tommy Stevens and Trace McSorley. You might see Trace McSorley come out from the backfield or on the wide receiver.
There you go.
You might, or a read option.
It's basically what the Saints did with Taysom Hill.
Yeah,
exactly.
He did everything,
and it worked well too. All right, let's take a look at wide receivers. Where are we coming in, gentlemen? Let's start with Mike Evans. Where do we have Mike Evans?
6.
8.
7.
Man, I'm lowest on him at 9, and I'm still pretty high on him. I think he's going to have a big year. This is a make or break year for Jameis Winston, gentlemen.
This is the final year, I think, of Jameis Winston.
I am very concerned about not only Mike Evans, but Godwin's there too. And Godwin's actually moving up a lot of people's boards. I'm interested to see how early he goes. I've seen some have him in a top 10 receiver. Godwin here.
If you're saying this is the last year for Jameis Winston, like this is his make or break year, this is definitely the make or break year also for Marcus Mariota.
I think he's more break than make, but he's had trouble staying on the field too. How about Amari Cooper? Did he register in your top 10 here?
8.
10.
I have him at 9.
Yeah, I'm at 10. We're really similar on a lot of these wide receiver picks. I do think Juju Smith-Schuster is a little underrated. I really think that he could potentially be a top 10 overall player this season.
I have him at 3.
Well, I had a guy who sneaked in. I had Robert Woods in my top 10.
And Woods is there, and Cooks is there too.
Yeah,
high-powered
Robert
offense.
Woods last year was a guaranteed double-digit point every week.
I gotta say, one I'm probably going to stay away from this year, Adam Thielen. He started the beginning of the season off like gangbusters, but didn't have more than 5 catches in the last 5 games of the season and no touchdowns in his last 4. He really fell off at the end of the season.
Well, he had that record last year where it was like most consecutive games with 100 receiving yards. Yeah,
Shockingly, 113 catches last year. Only projected for 89 this year by ESPN. I would be careful about relying on Thielen as a wide receiver one. I think he's down the bottom half of the wide receiver two conversation. Another person I think that just missed my top 10, Julian Edelman. With no Gronk, who else do they really have?
But
that's a tough one. I see where you're putting him in there, but I really don't know because they always have those guys that just sneak in there, and you, just like who was the guy that he played lacrosse a couple years ago?
Chris Hogan.
Hogan, yeah, guys like Hogan, and then you had Patterson last year, who's now with the Bears.
And the thing with Brady is Brady's a short pass gang, and he incorporates his running backs a lot more with passing than some of his wide receivers. Of course, when Julian Edelman goes out for his slants, you ain't stopping him. He takes a slant, he's going.
All right, let's move on to tight ends before we take a quick break. I think we all pretty much agreed Kelsey, Ertz, and Kittle are in the top three. Mm-hmm. While we did disagree in what particular order, I think, to Parker's point, I think Kittle could definitely step up. I'm still going Kelsey 1, Ertz 2. I do want to talk about this second half of the tight ends. I mentioned earlier Evan Ingram. And again, I only put Ingram here as just a volume play. I mean, if you don't get one of those top three, Ingram, I'd be fine with Ingram at 4. He finished the season last 4 weeks with 75-plus receiving yards in every game and at least 3 receptions in every game for the last 4. I think this is a guy that really could have a tremendous season. Is he going to put up Kittle, Ertz, or Kelsey numbers? I don't know. But again, if I don't get one of those top 3, I'm probably going to try to get Evan Ingram right after that.
Well, that's a good observation because who do the Giants have as a wide receiver core?
Sterling Shepard's going to have a breakout.
All they have
year,
is really Sterling Shepard.
I mean, most of them...
Golden Tate's there.
But Tate is suspended for 4 games. I'm Shepard's hurt right now. He's got a thumb injury, so I don't even know that he starts the season with them. They're just a mess. I think Ingram's really going to be the beneficiary of that.
You guys are playing Eliminator Challenge on ESPN. Pick every team against the Giants for your Eliminator every week.
Yeah.
So who are some other surprises we have in here? We talked about some of the other people in our top 10, but just quick one name that you're looking for tight ends to break out.
Njoku.
We know you love Njoku, and again, that might not be a bad play. He's just never done much. He's all hype at this point, and again, that's where we're at with the Browns at this point. Also, he's questionable right now with an injury, so interesting there.
There's 2 names that I couldn't figure out where I wanted to put them. So put them at 9 and 10: Jordan Reed and Austin Hooper.
Jordan
Reed's worst enemy is the field.
Somehow Jordan Reed is at 15. I'm shocked he's that low. I'll probably end up with him in some leagues. Again, he's the type of guy, if you are picking him to be your number 1, you got to have somebody else. Maybe a guy like picking up a Gronk or something like that, or even a Dallas Goedert or somebody like that. Because I think Gronk reasonably could come back. He's saying no, but...
Look at Jason Witten.
Yeah. I mean, he took a whole year off. So
look at Brett Favre. Brett Favre took a couple.
I would say Jordan Reed, a sleeper there, tight end for me. I'm also Trey Burton. I think that...
I was just going to say him, yeah.
Yeah, one more year into Bears offense. Trubisky looked certainly better last year, I think we can say. Burton, I think, could be a breakout tight end candidate, so I might have him.
And can I also add another one? I feel like Vance McDonald might actually be a candidate in the Steelers offense this year, too.
There is a lot of passing yardage and targets since Antonio Brown has gone. So I think that's a very good point as well.
He's not going to be no Heath Miller, but Vance McDonald or Jesse James, but Vance McDonald could potentially rack up some yards.
All right, we are going to take a quick break. We will be right back with our rookies, sleepers and busts, players on new teams, and our Super Bowl predictions. We'll be back in just a minute.
Hey everyone, this is Brian Christiana. Thanks for listening to the Fantasy Football Strategy Guide.
You can't forget the stories, ways to
All right, we are back here with the Fantasy Football Strategy Guide, joined by Brian Christiana, Dylan Kleintop, Parker Rose. We're going to be coming at you every month talking about fantasy football, so we look forward to seeing you again in September. But to close out our show today, we are going to start talking about rookies, sleepers and busts, and players on new teams. So we're going to start off with rookies. This is actually, gentlemen, kind of difficult, depending on how you want to look at it. Really, very few rookies have much of an impact in their first year outside of running backs. Often it takes rookie wide receivers some time. But we do have a number 1 overall pick at quarterback that is pretty much already assured a starting position with the Arizona Cardinals. What are our thoughts here on Kyler Murray?
I love him. I mean, with the new coach, Cliff Kingsbury, I love it. I think he's going to be just as good as he was at Oklahoma. I think the coach at Oklahoma really does well with developing quarterbacks for the NFL, and that's why I think Jalen Hurts is going to really be looked at next year's draft.
Interesting. I have him as my number 1 rookie. I think that he's got a really solid arm, which I think everybody looks at his speed and says, yeah, he's going to run for a lot. He's got a much better and more accurate arm than someone like Lamar Jackson. Now, granted, Lamar Jackson was not a number 1 overall pick, and in fact, barely was drafted in the first round. I think Murray is really going to gain a lot of ground with his feet. And I think if we can look back to last year, Josh Allen, and how Josh Allen was one of the best ranked quarterbacks because of the amount of rushing touchdowns. So I think that's interesting about Murray. What are your thoughts, Dylan, on Kyler Murray?
I have Kyler Murray at 3. I'm sold on him, but I'm not completely sold to take him, above many veteran quarterbacks in the league. I mean, because the veteran quarterbacks, they know exactly what to expect from the league. Kyler Murray is going to get hit one time, and you think he's fragile? His head's going to be jarred, and he's not going to know what to do with himself right away. He's a rookie. Yeah, he's the number 1 pick, but for me, I'm not completely sold on him. I might have him on my bench to see what happens the first couple of weeks, but I will definitely not start him.
I think that's a situation where I might pick Murray, but I would definitely have a Roethlisberger or a Cam Newton or someone behind him and maybe rotate and play the matchup game. Thoughts on Kyler Murray, Parker?
I have him at 2.
Yeah.
He's a talented quarterback, but like what Dylan says, rookies that won awards in colleges, they get all high hope to come to the NFL, and it's like a whole different game. Like
he was my number 1.
Look at ex quarterbacks that won Heisman's. Johnny Manziel, where's he at?
AJ McCarron, where's he at?
Tim Tebow, where's he at?
Jameis Winston's coming to probably if his last year if he doesn't perform well.
My question is, with Murray, is he going to get that curse, or is he going to be above those expectations is what people think he is?
The only one out of all those people you said that I don't think is better than Kyler Murray in college was Tim Tebow. I honestly think he was better than Jameis Winston. He was better than, you could even say, Matt Leinart. There was a lot of guys that... he was better than Sam Bradford. The only player you said on that list that was better than him in college was Tim Tebow.
All right, well, let's move on to some other rookies we have here. I want to obviously, I'm assuming most of us have Josh Jacobs on this list. First round pick to Oakland, projected to be their starting running back. I think it's all pretty safe to say he's
worth it.
Yeah, he's probably going to be the top drafted rookie. Him and Kyler Murray are going right around the same area. But I wanted to come to one particular one, N'Keal Harry, New England wide receiver out of Arizona State, is highly regarded as one of the best talents out of the draft at wide receiver. Again, other than Edelman and Hogan, who else do they even have?
I don't think they have Hogan anymore.
Hogan's gone?
I think Hogan's gone.
So other than Edelman...
They have Demaryius Thomas.
Who is a shell of himself.
He's showing his age.
Yeah, he's definitely shown his age.
So at the beginning of the season, you're going to have Edelman and Thomas, N'Keal Harry at the 3 potentially. But he's not even a slot guy, so it might be Harry and Thomas on the outside, Edelman in the slot, which is probably what will happen. I think of any rookie to draft outside of a Josh Jacobs, or we'll talk about Miles Sanders, I'm sure. I think Harry is going to be the one that might give you some, significant upside. And if you were in a keeper or dynasty league, I would make sure to try to get N'Keal Harry from New England. I mentioned Miles Sanders. Where did he come in on your top 5?
I have him at 7.
That's not the top 5.
Yeah.
Oh, top 5, my fault. I don't have him in my top 5.
I don't have him in my top 5 either.
Really?
You said number 5.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised he's not a little higher for you, gentlemen. I think he's got a legitimate shot to at least split time. And to be honest, Jordan Howard
I'm taking Miles Sanders. But the one I told you during the break, I had one big shocker. I put Preston Williams. Have you heard of this guy yet?
No.
He plays for the Miami Dolphins. He's undrafted, wide receiver, and they're saying that he is looking amazing in training camp. They're saying he could even take over Kenny Stills and Devontae Parker's job. So that's someone you should look out for. Just remember that name, Preston Williams from
Excellent.
Miami. I mean, not a great team overall, but
No, they're not. Who are some other people we have in our top 5, Dylan?
I have T.J. Hawkinson.
oh yeah, he's gonna be good.
And then I have DK Metcalf.
You know, it's funny because everything you hear about Metcalf is how fast he is, how strong he is, but the jury's still out on his ability to actually catch the ball, what he's getting paid
I think
to
he's
do.
gonna be like a piece of glass.
And also, I have an issue with the offense there. They've never been able to really have a whole lot of consistency out of their wide receivers. Look at Doug Baldwin, Tyler Lockett. Neither of them have been consistent.
Paul Richardson.
Yeah, they've been solid. Now, Redskin. They've been good if you just look at their end of season numbers. But it's just that same thing every week. Do I want to start this guy? And then if you do, you get 1 point out of him. Metcalf, I don't know that I would draft this year, but that's just me. And certainly maybe in a keeper or dynasty league, sure. I don't think in redraft leagues I'll have him.
Miller, what? I know we all know that you're a Washington Redskins fan. So did you consider Dwayne at all?
No,
You didn't think?
I don't even think he starts half the season. I would be very surprised if it's not Colt McCoy or Case Keenum.
I think Case Keenum is going to start the season.
Colt McCoy's number 1 on the depth chart right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, they owe a lot of money to Case Keenum, don't they?
I don't know how much they paid him.
Colt McCoy's older too now. He's pushed. He's up
He's
there.
not as old as you
Colt McCoy's
think.
probably like 31 at this
Yeah,
point.
I'm
he
thinking of
just
someone
seems
else
like
then.
he's been around forever. But
Yeah, signed with the Browns.
but
I'm thinking of someone else.
he's and you know what? Who even knows what happens with Alex Smith? I mean,
That's a shame. It really is a shame.
he was having a decent season. They
I-
actually were in the playoff hunt there first half of the season
I
last year.
like
until he
Alex
went
Smith.
down.
He was an underrated quarterback, but I actually liked Alex
Alex
Smith.
Smith is that guy that always gets the rookie or the younger guy always takes over for him with Colin and Patrick Mahomes.
I got to tell you, I like the pick. I don't have an issue with the pick. We needed it, but at the same time, I'm not interested in. There's too many quarterbacks.
Your defense is what I'm looking forward to seeing.
I think the defense is a very big part.
Jonathan Allen.
Parker, anyone else on the top 5 rookies you wanted to mention?
I put Marquise Brown because, like what Brian said earlier with Willie Snead, their only wide receiver. He would add some depth to the wide receiver core for the Ravens, and I also put Paris Campbell up there too. Paris Campbell in there too.
My concern with Brown is just the volume. I mean, obviously, yes, they do have to throw to somebody, and he might be the beneficiary of that. But if you look at how much they ran the ball last year, and now they have Ingram in addition to all the pieces they had last year, I'm just not sure that there's any value this season there, in my opinion. But you never know. You never know. I mean, he's certainly got a great opportunity. There's no question about that.
I'm not big on Lamar because I think he's more run than any of those dual threat I think he runs more than Cam does. Runs more than Russell Wilson, those type of guys. I would stay away from Ravens receivers.
All right, gentlemen, just because of time here, I want to keep this to about an hour. Let's talk about sleepers and busts. We'll talk about them together. So, Brian, let's hear your number 1 sleeper, your number 1 bust.
All right, my number 1 sleeper is Dante Moncrief from the Pittsburgh Steelers, wide receiver. And then my bust number... Well, I'm not going to go... I'm going to put Cooper Kupp on there.
Just for what reason?
With Cooper Kupp?
Yeah.
I think they're going to... With Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods, I think it's just going to be... there's a lot of competition there.
And, of course, Gurley. And they drafted a rookie that's more third down back, but he might take some targets too. Goff still put up unbelievable numbers last year. You don't think they can sustain a third wide receiver?
It's gonna be. We don't know how that team is gonna be this year. I mean, we've seen one-hit wonders come out of the NFC with Atlanta that one year. So I really just don't know at this point. I was thinking of people who I even put Jameis Winston in there and like Aaron Jones from Green Bay, but Cooper Kupp really stuck out to me most. So
Dylan, top sleeper, top bust.
I'm going to go the complete opposite of Brian. My number 1 sleeper is Cooper Kupp, and my number 1 bust is Philip Lindsay.
Why are you down on Lindsay?
Yeah, he had a good season last year, but think about who they have. They have Royce Freeman, who was a rookie last year, so obviously he was just getting into the NFL. I think they're going to give more time to him. Philip Lindsay's, he's going to have an okay season, but I don't think he's going to be as good as he was last year. I think he's more of an average back at best.
Well, and to Brian's point earlier, they do have Riddick as well. Something that's interesting in terms of how you look at Lindsey. Lindsey did not eclipse 50 yards in the last 4 weeks of last season, 30, 24, 46 yards, and then did not play in the finale last year. So he did have the big game week 13, 157 yards, 2 touchdowns. I wonder if Lindsey gets the volume. Freeman was hurt a lot last year. Riddick is still there. I think he could have an impact, but I don't know. It's a very interesting choice.
Cortland Sutton, remember that name too for Denver.
You know, I actually drafted him last year, and he had some decent weeks last year, but I think he's going to have more of an opportunity this year. Parker, top sleeper and top bust.
My top sleeper, I'm going Mark Ingram. New team, he might get the start. And like you said, Professor Miller was with the running game. And even though Brian said he's used to split time, I followed Mark Ingram since he was in college. Came out, he was a talented running back. Now my bust, I'm going with AB because of with his foot and with his helmet. He's on a team that has an inconsistent quarterback, and they got a new running back. So I don't see AB putting up the numbers that some people are thinking.
They, playing devil's advocate there, they do not really have anybody else at receiver either. I mean, he's going to get a lot of targets, but I do think you make a good point. Well, I'm going to go in a different direction than both of you gentlemen. My number one sleeper, Jimmy Garoppolo, and my number one bust, Pat Mahomes. Now, when I say that, what I mean is I do not think that what you invest in drafting him is going to give you the return. No quarterback ever has done what he's done and replicated it, even at a smaller scale.
Yeah.
I think that it's safe to bet that he's going to regress by at least 10 touchdowns. Now, that being said, if you took those 10 touchdowns away, he still would be quarterback number one. I'm not denying that he's not the top quarterback, and I have him at 14. I just probably won't have him in any draft this year because I just don't think that he's going to put up the same numbers. I don't even think it's possible to put up the same numbers. And then again, to our previous point, Kareem Hunt no longer with the Chiefs. So
how about the dreaded Madden curse that you also put him as a bust?
Hey, there you go. That's another good reason. I didn't even think about that. One person to look out for real quick on the sleepers, I'm going to say Will Fuller. Talk about a guy that has been just ravaged by injuries in his career, but when he's on the field, he is electric. I hope to have some shares of Will Fuller this year. Also talked about Kerryon Johnson earlier, and then I said Darius Geis. While he is sort of in a crowded backfield with Chris Thompson and Adrian Peterson, and they did bring Peterson back this year, Geis coming off of an injury, I don't look at him as a rookie, even though he's never played a NFL regular season game.
It's like Ben Simmons.
Yeah, so I think Geis could have a big year. He's got a lot of upside. Who are some other sleepers?
I had Eckler for the Chargers.
And I think that a lot of that depends on the Melvin Gordon situation, but I think he could still be viable even if Gordon's back.
I put Kerryon's teammate Marvin Jones.
I put Aaron Rodgers. He had a rough season last season, but Aaron Rodgers is due for a better season. And I also put Philip Lindsay, even though with his stats, I still feel like he's going to have an okay year.
Well, one thing that was also brought up, Philip Lindsay was a rookie too. So I mean, he could have definitely been rookie of the year last year. He could have been looked at for rookie of the year.
One of my sleepers, and Brian's going to like this one, is Michael Gallup.
Michael Gallup's going to be
I
good.
actually drafted him in like every single league last year, and it didn't work out. But I actually am looking at maybe keeping him.
Well, Gallup was like the number 4 receiver. Now he's going up to number 2 because Cobb is going into the slot.
Interesting. Any more busts before you guys? Let's throw out one quick name before we move on. But other than the ones we already said, who are you looking at?
David Johnson.
Just not high on him. Just don't.
No.
But on one hand, you mentioned that you liked Kyler Murray.
I do like Kyler Murray, and I like Larry Fitzgerald. David Johnson, inconsistent, man.
I feel Christian McCaffrey might be a bust, like you were saying, injury prone.
I don't know that he's injury prone though. I don't know that he's
Christian
ever really
McCaffrey,
been hurt.
I think, is going to have a really good season.
Like,
Well, he had a great season last year.
I'm on the fence about drafting him, but I have a feeling he might be a bust.
I've never one of my busts, Andrew Luck. I've never been big on Andrew Luck ever.
I got lucky last year, and I picked him. I think I had him in every league because nobody wanted him because he kept sliding down the board because he was off the whole season. Nobody really knew where he was at, so I got lucky. I'm on the inverse. I'm probably not going to get him this year because
you never know what to expect from him. Like
that is 100% true.
He's inconsistent with his games, with his seasons, you just never really know. So
some busts. I don't think this is really much of a surprise, but Leonard Fournette, I think he's lucky to even have a job by the end of this season. I also mentioned Baker Mayfield and Adam Thielen, who I mentioned before. One more to keep an eye on. Everyone seems to be high. I am not. DJ Moore out of Carolina.
Did you see the video that just came out from Steve Smith?
Yes,
the former
I did see that.
That was great.
But the thing is I don't remember, outside of maybe a few seasons with Steve Smith, Carolina ever having a wide receiver that was fantasy relevant. Cam just does not put up the kind of numbers that you need for, maybe if he's your third or fourth, maybe roll the dice on his upside, but I'm staying away from DJ Moore. All right, let's just take a quick look at top 5 players on new teams and talk about how their roles might change. Parker, I'll start with you on this one.
I got Bell at 1. Brown at 2, OBJ at 3, Ingram at 4, and Randall Cobb at 5. With Bell, like you said, Sam Darnold, he's just an okay quarterback. He'll be the run game's heavy in the Jets. Brown, talented wide receiver in Oakland. They need him. OBJ, a whole bunch of good talent. Ingram, going to get his starts. And Randall Cobb, new team. Let's see how he goes. Because he was a sleeper with the Packers in the last couple of years. He was
their
getting the
number
ball.
1. Now he has to transition to being a number 3.
Yeah, but if he's in the slot, they should have similar
He's still
target shares.
dangerous. He's still
very
dangerous
dangerous
wide receiver.
Dylan, anyone on there that Parker didn't mention?
I have literally the exact same list except for number 5. I have Jared Cook on the Saints.
You're high on Cook.
He produced great numbers for Oakland last year. He was their number 1 target, and in New Orleans, tight ends, you need tight ends in the NFL. And he's not the best tight end in the NFL, but he's fast for a tight end. He's tall.
He got his
built,
share of receptions too, yeah.
Breeze doesn't really look for the tight end all that much. Since Jimmy Graham. When Graham was there, he was a freak. So
I think Jared Cook is the best tight end they've had, though.
This is
Jimmy
true.
Graham.
Watson was, you could certainly...
Benjamin Watson, he retired,
Yeah.
but he said he considered coming back.
Yeah, I don't know that he's coming back, but I do think that's very interesting with Cook there. Brian, anybody on that list that you didn't mention?
Devin Funchess going to Indianapolis with. I think it all depends if luck. I think if Jacoby Brissett ends up going in, I think Devin Funchess will be someone not even worth thinking about.
No, that's very
if
true.
Andrew Luck is there, I think Devin Funchess could end up being. I think he can end up having just as good stats as T.Y. Hilton.
I've got a couple here that weren't mentioned. Obviously, of Beckham, Brown, and Bell, but also Kareem Hunt, Latavius Murray, and Golden Tate. And so, again, for Kareem Hunt, I think that if you are getting Nick Chubb, you need to get Hunt. I don't care if you have to take him in the very next round, because I think that those two, this could be like a New Orleans situation where you have 2 viable guys on a team. And with that offense, you never know, even though I'm not higher on Baker Mayfield. That's part of the reason I'm not higher on Baker Mayfield, because I think they're going to run the ball a lot. I don't think he's going to have 45, 50 pass attempts a game. When you have those 2 types of special talents, I think Hunt could be the difference maker for people in their fantasy playoffs. As I mentioned earlier, Latavius Murray on a high-powered offense, replacing Mark Ingram. I like him. And Golden Tate, while suspended for the first 4 games of the season, this might be a really, really, really good late-round flyer here. Again, who else is even going to catch passes from Eli Manning and or Daniel Jones? I think Tate is somebody that we should keep an eye on. All right, as we wrap up the show, we are going to talk about our Super Bowl predictions. So we are going to start off with Brian. Brian, let's hear your Super Bowl predictions.
We know who I'm on. Well, you know what? I actually put Dallas, but if Zeke does not play, which we don't know yet, I put Atlanta representing the NFC.
Really?
I like the 3-headed monster at wide receiver. Defense, it's all right. And then AFC, I put either Kansas City or, of course, New England Patriots.
Okay.
Can't deny Tom Brady.
So who do you have winning it all?
New England.
Okay, we got a New England from Brian. Parker, who do you got?
I went way outside the box. I'm staying in the NFCs for my prediction. For your Eagles fans out there, I'm taking the Philadelphia Eagles. Are going to the Super Bowl, and they're going against the Chargers. I have a feeling Phillip Rivers is going to lead that team. The Chargers are due for at least a run.
Without Melvin.
Who do you have winning that?
The Chargers.
Chargers, huh?
Oh, poor Ian, man.
Listen, the Chargers are due for a Super Bowl ring. They have the talents.
Well, every team is due for a Super Bowl except New England.
Right.
But I mean,
Well, are the Eagles really due for a Super Bowl? I think they got theirs for the decade. All right, Dylan, who do you have?
This is going to surprise a lot of people.
the Browns.
I'm actually completely 100% sold on the Browns. They are no longer the Cleveland Browns that you face. Oh, it's an easy win.
No.
They're a young team. They're a hype team. They have a bunch of speed, a bunch of youth, a bunch of power. I'm going with the Browns. I mean,
To win it all.
No, in the Super Bowl.
Okay.
They can easily, if not beat the Steelers, if not once or twice.
They tied us last year, and they gave
They
us a
can
run
beat the
for it.
Bengals. Honestly, they're going to come up against the Patriots. Obviously, every team has to go through the Patriots, get to the Super Bowl.
Is this
And-
the year, though, that the Patriots fall off?
I
No.
think so.
I think
I mean,
once,
come on.
I think
We
the-
said that last year too, but
No, no.
look at that.
I think the Browns, with their young team, young quarterback, young running back, two great wide receivers, fantastic defense.
That defense is awesome.
If you look at the Patriots games last year, they were all pretty close. The Patriots had a hard time beating teams.
I think the Patriots' only advantage is they literally play in the easiest division in football.
Thank you.
Miami, the Jets, they're terrible.
And the Bills.
And the Bills, the Bills,
the Bills are on the uprise.
They're-
Josh Allen's going to be.
but the Patriots should still beat the Bills
Yeah.
twice. That's almost a guaranteed 6-0 right there in your own
Don't say that
division.
to a Patriots fan though, because they'll argue with you that it's tough.
Well, I'm not pigeonholing every Patriots game. My point is that's one of the biggest reasons why at this point they're kind of getting a pass to the Super Bowl at this point because they're look at their division.
And
The
they're
Patriots also have the NFC East this year, so they have the Giants, they have Washington.
Well,
They
they're
have
gonna.
That's such an
I
easy
think they'll
schedule.
split that. They'll split that because I don't think they could beat Dallas. I don't think
I
they
think
could
they're
beat Philly.
Yo, and as
It
a Dal-
depends
I
what
think
their
they're
schedule
gonna. I
is.
think they're gonna beat Dallas. I really do. 'cause
Ain't
it's
gonna
in
beat
New
Pittsburgh.
England.
Anyways, from the NFC, I have the New Orleans Saints.
That's not.
That's,
A
a,
bad
that's a
think-
good pick.
That's a good pick.
I think the Saints will end up winning the Super Bowl this year, and it'll cement forever Drew Brees' legacy because there's a big question going around. Is Drew Brees a top 5 quarterback? In my opinion,
Yes.
he's one of the
That's
top 5
no
greatest
debate.
quarterbacks of all time, and I think he wins one more Super Bowl.
That's not a bad pick.
Before
I
he
actually like that
retires.
pick.
Gentlemen, I'm along the same lines in the NFC. I have in the championship game the Saints and the Eagles. In the AFC championship game, the Chiefs and the Chargers. I'm going to take the Saints and the Chargers in the Super Bowl, and I'm going to pick the Saints to win. So Dylan and I share that. I do not share his sentiment about the Browns, but I do share his sentiment about the Saints.
They might
So.
surprise a lot of people. So
I do like that when we do this, the Super Bowl preview, and then we can look back at it throughout the season. So make sure you guys remember who you picked here.
If Zeke plays, man.
I just think it's funny how in the beginning of the show he's like, "Why are you high on Drew Brees?" Now you know why I'm high on Drew Brees.
I don't blame you.
why are you high on Drew
Yeah,
Brees?
why are you high on Drew Brees?
We just had 2 people that weren't Parker pick them to go to the Super Bowl. I mean, that's probably
And
why.
said that he's a top 5 quarterback of all time.
Right.
He really is.
He's
Well,
underestimated.
that is our first episode of the season for the Fantasy Football Strategy Guide. We really hope and wish that your drafts go well. Hopefully you get to see some old friends that you haven't seen in a while. Hopefully you do well in your draft. And hopefully some of this information was valuable and that you'll be able to use this in your draft preparation. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to do this monthly. So we will have and we'll be back in September to talk about the first 2 weeks of the NFL season. And then we'll be back in October, November, December, and we'll wrap up in January. So we really look forward to this season. Dylan, certainly hope that we can make it work with you when you're here around campus as you are the soccer coach, the assistant soccer coach here. And of course, Brian and Parker will continue to do this each and every month. So, gentlemen, thank you all for joining us. Parker, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for allowing me to be here.
Dylan, thank you for making time out of your busy schedule to join us.
It's always fun.
And of course, Brian, well, I guess you're going to be counting down the days till Zeke's in camp.
That's right, man. I'm counting down the days.
All right, so for Parker Rose, Dylan Kleintop, Brian Christiana, and Professor Paul Miller, we will see you next time on the Fantasy Football Strategy Guide.
You can't forget